Yep.
You're saying you have the right, not only the privilege, the right, and the expectation is that you're going to take whatever area that you're working in, and based on the customer's requirements, not based on your supervisor's requirements or based on the company's requirements, you're going to serve your customer. And who among us doesn't like the ability to serve your customer better?
Sure.
Because then when you get the people right and they really do feel empowered, they have the tools that they need to get these things done, then basically kind of get out of their way.
Yep.
Yeah.
And let the process work itself through. And then, and it takes years to do that. I mean, this didn't happen overnight. This didn't happen in the first few years of it.
Mm-hmm.
But and then what happens is you get people who were formal black belts, formal master black belts, then get promoted into senior leadership roles.
Yep.
Now, this person's been transformed, right? They're going to have a Six Sigma shop. Whenever we do something in our group, and they've been involved in Six Sigma, and they've seen. So now, as leaders, then over the life of the company, begin to come from that Six Sigma background. And with our group, I don't know what you're good, but we have full-time Six Sigma people. That's what you do. You come offline for a minimum of 3 years, and you're a Six Sigma black belt, or you're a Six Sigma master black belt, that type of thing. And then you get that, so that then gets embedded into the people side of your business, and then it becomes viral.
Yep.
At that point.
That's right.
Yeah.
But how do you think, with the economy being expected to be even more volatile in the coming years, how do you think that's going to affect process improvement initiatives like Lean Six Sigma or Kaizen?
I think that ties exactly to what I was just mentioning about the different levels at which you can deploy Lean Six Sigma. When you deploy it on short term, you don't need huge investments. You know you are going to get benefits straight away. So people will look a lot for this kind of project because precisely you cannot afford to wait for 1 year to see benefits. So I really believe that 2012 is going to be a challenging year, but a very lean year in which you have no choice but deploy Lean.
I think in the late 90s, it was Dr. Michael Hamill who talked about business process re-engineering.
Yes.
And in BPR, or business process re-engineering, you look at basically 4 components. You look at the vision of the company, you look at the processes, you look at technology, and then you look at people. Whether it's good time or bad time, in fact, there's no better time, right? The more the economy is volatile and going downturn, the more you need to cut cost. In Lean Six Sigma, one of the outcomes is cost saving. And if you are able to introduce even cost-saving projects and improvements to your organization, it definitely going to help your bottom line.
Of course.
Yeah. So, in fact, in economic downturn, do more RIEs.
And the other side of volatility is that when your inputs varies a lot, you have to manage your process so that your outputs don't vary, right? Which is what Lean Six Sigma is about.
Yeah, really what you want to do is develop a sustainable level of return. And one of the things I think that we often overlook in Six Sigma is the innovative side of it. No more do you need to innovate than when the economies are volatile. And it's not just a backward-looking exercise. It is a forward-looking exercise. Yes, there's a cost component, and yes, let's lean things down and become efficient as we can.
Yep.
But when it really gets integrated into your strategic outlook, and you use those same tools, create new tools, actually. Because what happens in your Six Sigma communities, you get some people that really get into this, and they go out and read, and they stutter, and they will study Gary Hamill. They will study what's going on out there, and then you let them kind of help lead the company and look at innovation. So in a volatile economic environment, yes, of course, we want to take cost out, but we also want to innovate, and we also want to find a different way of doing it better.
And I think in Singapore, with the government's push for productivity, Lean Six Sigma is definitely the way to go.
Right.
From the last economic downturn, have you seen any have you seen or heard any of any success stories where costs have been cut due to Lean Sigma, or huge savings have been made due to Lean Sigma? Any of you?
I would answer this question by putting it another way. Do you see how many companies have started Lean Six Sigma programs after 2008. And I think that speaks, I don't know, I mean, I'm not sure all these companies publish how much cost they have reduced thanks to Lean Six Sigma, but the fact that they apply and they continue to apply is a proof of success and of need of Lean Six Sigma in such economic downturns.
Yeah, it's getting harder and harder to distinguish what was Six Sigma and what, because it's embedded in our DNA.
Yeah.
And so it is practically the way we attack problems and we go after things. So can I say it's a direct result of a Six Sigma project or that? I would say that we are smarter, faster, more responsive, and more importantly, more tapped into the customer because of Six Sigma.
Right.
So, and I think it's also what you alluded to earlier. It's 1,000 little projects.
Yep.
It's not one big earth-shattering project where all of a sudden you've reinvented yourself.
That's right.
It's 1,000 small projects being led by a small work group of 5-6 people trying to take care of a customer.
And to me, that's why it works, and that's why there is a future and it's needed. Because when you start thinking about Lean Six Sigma as a pure tool to cut cost, for me, it's doomed to fail. Because the first resources you are going to cut are your OH engines. And then, so what? You are not able to do any Lean Six Sigma anymore.
Yeah.
So for me, it's really about having real projects that deliver good benefits on quality, on safety, on whatever you have, and at the same time help to reduce cost. And that's why it works.
So with this evolution comes customization, like what you were saying earlier, Charlie. Like, it's now all about making the customers happy, voice of the customer. I suppose customization is something that's heavily being implemented. So it's no longer just Lean Six Sigma methodologies that you're using, but rather incorporating new methodologies to suit your business goals.
Well, exactly. In fact, I remember in the early days of Six Sigma, one of our senior-most leaderships stood up when I was going through my Master Black Belt training, and she challenged us. She said, find something about Six Sigma that you get passionate about, that you love. Read everything that you can on it. Go and speak. Become a leader in your community around this whole concept and all the things that Six Sigma bring. Well, with that, then, it then encourages it to evolve. And if you keep it in a Six Sigma box and you just say, here's our set of tools, this is the way we always do it, when you start to get the migration is when you have people that have that kind of passion and they go and say, well, what if we did this, and what if we used that, and what if we took it to the next level, and you get some of that. And I think it's incumbent on the organization to allow that creativity to flourish. At Caterpillar, over the last few years, it has kind of combined what we call a CAT production system. And so we've got the CAT production system, and now we've got Six Sigma, and then Lean Six Sigma. Then these work out to Kaizen events, and then you do some of the Shine things that you do.
Yeah.
And so it does morph into something that an overarching thing called maybe in process improvement, rather than it's our Six Sigma program. Or it could be, this is the way we go to market. At least that's what I've experienced in our group.
I definitely can agree with Charlie on this big umbrella called process improvement. I think what we are looking at in terms of the outcome can be both tangible and intangible, the financial and the non-financial. The tangible part, of course, we look at KPIs and numbers, bottom line. But what we are seeing gradually is that, good time or bad time, the non-tangibles are enhanced. Things like teamwork, things like communication, things like visibility within the company. People begin to have this culture of the ability to identify problems and solve them. And then they are able to differentiate between financial and non-financial. What is doable, what is not doable. And this whole concept of cultural transformation gives them a sense of empowerment, that they are able now to take charge. They may be a middle manager, but they take accountability and say that, look, this is something within our area we can contribute, we can improve to the overall outcome of the organization. And then they conduct interactions, both internal as well as external. And finally, it comes to the process of customization. Once you have gone through the whole myriad of process improvement, looking at ways and means that you can make changes and make effective changes, they begin to document them. And this become part and parcel of our SOP, or what we call PNPs, policies and procedures.
Yeah, and Lean Six Sigma becomes a great tool in customization because you learn to measure safety, you learn to measure risk, you learn to measure quality in a specific business environment. But in the end, that's all the same structure, right? It's just about putting your own into the box.
Yeah. And then coming back to it again, if I think some of the most, in talking about the people side of this, when you want to get people engaged, some of the most successful projects that I've seen are the shortest.
Yes.
Using the fewest tools. And, there's no Six Sigma rule book says you've got to use all the tools. If you can use 2 of these and you can get what you need to get done, then go for it.
That goes with the KISS principles, I mean,
Yeah.
simple, right?
Yeah.
Sweet. Well, we see this happening over and over again, how the people adoption is critical to whatever program. And today we are on the verge of another hot button, and Anne just mentioned it, ERM, Enterprise Risk Management. And I think what we have done for Lean Six Sigma, Lean Healthcare, is a preparatory stage in terms of achieving a ERM effectiveness.
It's true. So about the voice of the customer, we were briefly mentioning earlier. How does voice of customer improve effectiveness of process improvement projects?
All what you do and what you are paid for is driven by what your customer wants. So one of the strengths of Lean Six Sigma is to be driven by the customer. You start by stating a problem, because a problem well stated is already half solved. Once you have stated the problem, you state it in the eyes of the customer. So you are bound to succeed. If you know where you want to go, why would you go on another way, right?
That's true. So listening to what customers have to say has direct impact.
Well, for the longest time, the healthcare institution always have a feedback system. We give out feedback form almost every day. And we also have online feedback at this point in time. Every year, the Ministry of Health also conduct customer satisfaction survey, and that contributes a huge proportion of the voice of customer. Because whether the customer is satisfied or not, overall, across the country, it impacts the healthcare institution. Yeah. So we take direction. The voice of the customer become our radar. Where do we improve? Last year was like waiting time.
Can you give us a few examples, Sherman? Like what would some of the customers of National Cancer Center of Singapore would want to say as a part of an improvement thing that can be done?
Patient definitely is a big voice that we must hear. Caregivers, huge. You get caregivers making a lot of noise in terms of how to better take care of their loved ones. We have public intervention, looking at some of the processes and downtime, looking at how we can better issue in terms of medication. So we have all these voices. And actually right now we have an internal system from the Ministry of Health called the HPO system, Healthcare Performance Office. And they basically collect indicators, measure performances, and make reports to the ministry. So we have a lot of these voice of customers to be concerned with. Yeah.
Voice of the customer, it's absolute. It is the starting block from which you go out. But sometimes that can be interesting as well. Sometimes the customer doesn't know what they want. And this whole idea of drilling down to critical customer requirements, which is pretty fundamental to any Six Sigma project.
Yep.
And it's I always find it fascinating. You can always, every voice of every customer, I want it bigger, better, brighter.
Yep.
No matter what it is, bigger, better, brighter. And so what does that really mean? And what we found in a number of projects is that what we thought was a critical customer requirement was not. It was, in our view, a critical customer requirement. And we thought that something was perhaps more important than it was. And sometimes the benefit of the project is chasing the right thing. And so when you really get into that whole voice of the customer and convert it into some kind of a requirement, that's when it becomes interesting. And that's when it becomes a driver.